What is up, Yugi Bros? Today we have a duel video, and the duel video is actually on the right version of Duelingbook. They actually updated Duelingbook and put all the speed duel cards on there. So we are going to actually play this correctly for once. Today we are testing Volcanics, and rightfully so. We have the Volcanic Rocket Avatar. Our opponent is playing Destiny Hero mix. It's interesting. It's kind of like a tribute deck. It's kind of like where Inner Conflict kind of fell off. They're now trying out Shadow Reborn as a skill, which we'll bring up in a second. We'll go into it in a second. Again, I don't want to have a crazy long intro to this video like I did the last one. We're just going to let the game play out, and we'll explain things as we go. They're going to start out here with reinforcements of the army, and they're going to add a copy of Destiny Hero Diamond Dude. Diamond Dude is a really cool card that we got in speed duels, and here it goes. So its effect says once per turn you can excavate the top card of your deck, and if it's a normal spell, send it to the grave, otherwise place it on the bottom of your deck. During the main phase of your next turn, you can activate the effect of the spell in your grave, even if this card is no longer face up on the field, which is kind of nuts. So they're going to mill Night Beam here, which is a normal spell, so they actually get this effect any point during their main phase next turn, regardless if Diamond Dude stays on the board, which is kind of crazy. On that note, this deck actually kind of wants to go first. Now, I don't know if it should play 30 cards or not, but we were messing around with a lot of different options, so it is what it is. So we are playing Volcanics. We kind of cycle around Blaze Accelerator, the card we just drew here, which says target a monster your opponent controls, send a pyro with 500 or less attack from your hand to the grave, and if you do destroy that target, your monsters cannot declare an attack the turn you activate this effect. This card is really good as spot removal, however the downside is you don't get to declare an attack the turn, so it's a little slow. There's two Axle skills in this set, one of which lets you send a Tri-Blaze Accelerator from your field to the grave to special summon a Volcanic Doomfire, this guy right here, from your hand deck or grave once per duel, but you just can't do burn damage, effect damage that turn. The other skill, however, is Blaze Accelerator Deployment. This one says once per turn you can change the name of a Blaze Accelerator you control to a Tri-Blaze Accelerator, and this skill can be used twice per duel. The reason we are not playing the other skill, I feel like when you have to facilitate both Blaze Accelerator to your field and then Tri-Blaze Accelerator, granted, this hand makes it possible. You can normally run out the Blaze, you could activate Rocket when you summon it and add a Tri-Blaze, and then sack this off for Tri-Blaze and drop the Doomfire. However, in my opinion, that's just a lot of advantage you just lost for one thing. Whereas in this deck, since you always want to have Blaze Accelerator anyways, you can change the name twice per duel to Tri-Blaze so that Doomfire meets its requirements to come out. Originally, we weren't playing Doomfire. He's kind of a win more card. In most Volcanic decks, you'd never see this card anyways, because it's just so niche. But the upside is, because you can treat this as Tri-Blaze, you draw this whenever you need it, and you can just drop it for free. It's 3,000. It has two effects. The first one is during your opponent's battle phase, attack position monsters your opponent controls must attack if able. That's okay, but they can put things in defense to play around that. The other effect, though, is much more relevant, and is when this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each destroyed by this effect. That's pretty good. So it just Raigekis your opponent's board and leaves it very free for you to make some moves. So we're going to draw for turn, like I said, with Blaze Accelerator. We're going to drop Rocket here. We're going to add another copy of Blaze Accelerator to hand. Then we're going to flip our Axle skill after activating Accelerator, changing the name to Tri-Blaze, sending it, and dropping our Doomfire for free. Then we're going to attack. So the only way you don't get it to attack is if you use this card's effect. But if we just sent it off for summon this thing, we are A-okay. So we're going to have Doomfire swinging here for 1,600 and Rocket swinging for 19. And just like that, they're already at 500 life points. So this deck, believe it or not, as much as it's normally been a slow deck, depending on how you do it, can actually be quite quick depending, again, where you hit the Doomfire. They're going to Shadow Reborn here, accidentally paying all of their life points, fixing that real quick, and bring back the Destiny Hero Diamond Dude. So they would get the Night Beam effect this turn had we set any cards, but we did not. They're going to activate their Diamond Dude here once again. They're going to mill a copy of Reinforcements of the Army, so next turn they get to add any level 4 lower warrior from their deck to their hand, which is kind of cool. They're kind of in a pickle here, though, only being at 250. They're actually going to normal summon a breaker at 19 and crash it with a rocket, and hope to God we don't have a normal summon big enough to swing over for 250 into the following turn. We draw Dust Tornado, but it doesn't matter. We have Volcanic Blaster. This is a card we play as a one-of. Originally, I wasn't playing this, but it kind of works out in Speed Duels better than it could have normally, and if it dies by battle and is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Volcanic monster from your deck to the top of your deck. Now, it is slow, and it's not fantastic because it goes to the top of your deck, but there are so many times where I've wanted to top deck either Shell or Rocket, and Blaster makes that more possible. Also, Blaster being 1200 isn't completely the worst. We can't send it off Blaze Accelerator because it has to send a monster with 500 or less attack. That's the difference between this and Tri-Blaze. Tri-Blaze, you can send any Pyro, and it burns for 500, whereas this can only send monsters with 500 or less attack, so obviously just your shells. But little price to pay for a little bit more consistency. So we easily take game 1, and we will go into game 2. So they elect to have us go first. Now they are sighting into a skill here. This is now a Weevil skill. We don't know exactly what this is as of yet. We opened Rocket, Shell, Mitchazur, and Dust Tornado. We're playing Mitchazur because if you activate Blaze Accelerator, sending a thing to destroying something, New Chain, you can activate Mitchazur to pop another monster on the field. So you can essentially get 2 pops for the price of 1 pop in this deck. Also, this card isn't bad when your monsters just die by battle in general. Unless it's Rocket, these things are usually just getting chump blocked and dying. So Mitchazur can pop extra monsters there as well. We're going to activate Rocket. We're going to add Blaze Accelerator. 1900 on a Stratos is so good in Speed Duels. And we're going to pass turn. They're going to draw into Eradicating Aerosol. So this, obviously, we don't know as of yet. But as the outside looking in, we know this is Hidden Parasite, which twice per duel you can change all monsters on the field to Insect. And because Diamond Dude is in this deck, you can mill this card and essentially the following turn wipe all insects after using the skill to change everything to insects. They're going to activate a Soul Exchange here, tributing our monster and dropping Dark Ruler Hades. Now Hades is actually pretty good this format. I think it's a lot better than it was, where it negates the effects of monsters destroyed by battle with fiend monsters you control. So if we draw into Volcanic Blaster, you'll see firsthand as to why this card's actually a lot more relevant. We're gonna activate Blaze Accelerator on our turn. We're gonna pitch the Shell and pop the Dark Ruler Hades. We're then gonna trigger Shell's effect Engrave, which says once per turn you can pay 500 life, add a Volcanic Shell from your deck to your hand. This card must be in the grave to activate and resolve the effect. So if they change something like DD Crow to the activation of this effect, you're not going to resolve it correctly. So you won't get your Shell. But this is really strong because it's only a soft once per turn. So let's say they had another monster on the field. You could then activate Accelerator once again, pitch another Shell, pop another monster, and then activate this Shell in the graveyard. This card is not once per turn. Little known fact. But obviously they don't have another monster here, so we're just going to pass. They're going to draw into Reinforcements in the Army. They're going to normal summon Breaker the Magical Warrior. And you know what's nice about Blaze Accelerator is the card is good enough where it makes your opponent bait cards like Breaker into hitting that instead of our actual back row. It sometimes hurts because we kind of need Accelerator, but Rocket, keep in mind, can add a Blaze Accelerator from the deck or the graveyard to the hand, so we can continue to loop this. Now, we did play 2 just in case they banish 1 with a Cosmic, for example, and more consistency, but, you know, I digress. So, we draw into a copy of Wildfire. This is a cool quick play spell that says you pay 500 life points, destroy all Blaze Accelerator cards you control, and if you do, destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. Then you special summon a Wildfire token, Pyro Fire, level 3, attack and defense 1000 in attack position. Your monsters cannot declare an attack the turn you activate this card. It's okay. It's a quick play. It's a quick play Dark Hole at the cost of 500 life points and you having a Blaze Accelerator on your field, which is kind of the whole point of the deck. I think the card is really strong by comparison, and it obviously can be relevant depending on where you use it, but it gives this deck another board wipe that otherwise wouldn't really matter, especially in your opponent's turn on their battle phase. If you fire this off, you wipe their board, and then you get a 1000 token going into your turn, and then you can attack. Like, that's where I think it's really strong, because there's no main phase 2 in Speed Duels. Wildfire on their turn ends up being a lot more relevant. We're going to set the Shell and pass. They're going to draw an Exiled Force, going to normal the Diamond Dude, using its effect. They're going to mill a Diamond Dude, so unfortunately, because it's not a normal spell, it will go to the bottom of their deck. And they will go straight into battle phase. They're going to have Diamond Dude swing over our Shell, and they're going to have Breaker try to swing in for game, but we have the Mitchazur when Shell dies to pop the Breaker, so we live to tell another tale. we draw into Zoma the Spirit. Now, in addition to this deck doing little chip damage, we figured extra burn damage is never a bad thing. And because we lack the monsters outside of 3 Rocket and 1 Blaster for beat sticks outside of Doomfire, but I can't count that because you can normal summon it, we use a couple Zomas for extra damage, extra attack mobility because we're low on that. We're gonna set the Zoma and pass. They're gonna draw into Tribute to the Doom. Now, the reason cards like this are relevant in this deck, not only can you mill it off of Diamond Dude, obviously, and trigger it the following turn, Diamond Dude says you activate the effects of the normal spell. Therefore, you don't pay activation requirement cost. And because Tribute to the Doom's activation requirement is you discard 1 card, if you were to mill it with something like Diamond Dude, the following turn, you just get to freely destroy 1 monster. You don't even have to pay the discard, which is nuts if you think about it. They're gonna use Diamond Dude again here. They're gonna miss, and they're gonna hit the Breaker. So they're going to Reinforcements of the Army, another Diamond Dude. They're going to drop the second Diamond Dude, use its effect, and mill a Tribute to the Doomed, as I just said this. And now they're going to activate the other Tribute to the Doomed in hand, pitching Exiled Force to destroy our monster, making it so that either one of these Diamond Dudes is enough for game. We're going to obviously flip Zoma on the first one. They're going to obviously swing over that. They have the life points to do so. And they're going to swing in with the second one here to unfortunately defeat us. We drew into Jar of Avarice. Now, I'll touch on this card in a second when I talk about the deck, but let's go to game 3 first. So we're going to make them go first, since we would prefer to go second. Granted, it doesn't matter too much in this deck because you can set with these, but I do still like to have the extra card. They're going to Reinforcements to a Diamond Dude. We've seen this trope before. They're going to use its effect, mill Tribute to the Doomed, and pass. So no matter what we summon, they get next turn the effect to destroy a monster, so we have to kindly play around that. So we're going to set a Shell and 1 Michizor and a Wabaku. We're playing Wabaku in here because this deck kind of wants to keep its monsters. Like I said, it's a low monster count. Playing a Sphere Karibo, I feel like just isn't enough. You want to wall as much as possible, especially because then going into your turn, if you have a Blaze Accelerator and a Shell, for example, you could wipe technically all 3 of their monsters on just that alone. But you'd like to have a follow-up since you can't attack that turn, so you'd like to keep your board as long as possible. They're going to draw into Cyber Dragon. So they have 2 Cyber Dragons in hand. This is a new card, obviously, that says you can special summon it if your opponent controls a monster and you do not. Really strong card. They're going to activate the Tribute to the Doomed effect, as we predicted, popping our Shell. So we're going to activate our Michizor, popping their Diamond Dude. This also helps because then Diamond Dude doesn't get his effect again, which, I mean, I can understand why they waited. They'd rather gain the advantage and then use the effect on the field, but might have been a misplay on their part. I'm not really sure. I'm going to draw into Zoma the Spirit. We're going to normal summon our Blaster. We're going to set another Michizor, and we're going to go into battle phase. And the reason we don't set all 3, I don't know if you guys have seen, Straight Flush is now in the game. Straight Flush is a card that a lot of people are citing that says if all of your opponent's spell and trap zones are occupied, it wipes all of them. It's something that I've kind of been trying to play around more playing online, because I've already got hit with it a few times, and it's not pretty. And I'd like to keep as much advantage here as possible. Plus, we have Wabaku, so we're not really worried about losing the following turn. So we're going to have Blaster swing in for 12 and pass. They're going to draw in a Hammer Shot, which is really good in this deck, especially when you hit off Diamond Dude. Unfortunately, it's not going to work here because the Cyber Dragon is now the strongest monster on the field, but that's fine with us. They're going to special the Cyber Dragon, immediately then tribute it for Dark Ruler Hades. And Dark Ruler Hades here is going to be big because we won't get this effect of Blaster to stack a Volcanic monster if Hades destroys it. So we're going to actually Wabaku. And I understand we could have had this die into this, and we could have Michizored that off the field, but I feel like we need the advantage that this card gives us right now. We're not on a whole lot. So we're going to draw into Volcanic Rocket, and that actually works out really well. We'll have Rocket summon out. We'll use Rocket's effect, add a Blaze Accelerator. We will then set the Zoma and move right to battle phase. We're going to have Rocket swing into Hades. They're going to say that's A-okay. We're going to take the 550, but then we're allowed to activate our Michizor, getting rid of the Dark Ruler Hades, and then Blaster can swing in for a direct of 1200. We're going to end our turn on that. Now they're going to have to get rid of our monster another way if they really don't want us to stack Volcanics. They're going to draw into Exiled Force. They'll special summon a Cyber Dragon. Then they will normal summon the Exiled Force, and they will use its effect to out the Blaster. Now, in retrospect, Blaster still isn't going to trigger here because it only works if it's destroyed by battle, but we wasted a lot of their cards to get around this. So I feel like it put in the work it needed. They're going to swing directly with Cyber Dragon here. We're going to flip Zoma, and unfortunately, because they have only 1,600 life points left, it doesn't matter really what we do. We actually have Shell in the grave. We haven't used it for 2 turns. I don't know why I forgot that, but we're going to add it to hand. So just to give you a perspective, even if we didn't have the Zoma here to auto-win the game, we can pop the Cyber Dragon through the shell and the accelerator and then add another shell and have Book of Moon. I don't, unfortunately, love winning off Zoma the Spirit because I still think this card probably should be a card to go to 1 if and when we ever receive a limited list. I kind of just think this card steals wins you shouldn't be able to steal. But it is what it is. It's in the game. We're going to take 300 here, and they will then take the full 2100 to lose the game. We wanted to see what they would have drawn just to see where they would have been going into their turn, and they have a Rhoda, they have a Hammer Shot, and they have a Kaiser Glider, and then of course we draw into Jar of Avarice once again, which I will talk about in a second. So for Volcanics, we were playing 2 copies of Volcanic Doomfire only because we can change Blaze Accelerator twice per duel. So we might as well play 2 of this. You would think this is kind of a brick, but trust me, it's actually not as much as you'd think. I thought it was. I originally didn't play any, then I played 1, now we're at 2. Don't play 3 though, you'll never be able to drop the 3rd one unless you're actually playing a Tri-Blaze. 3 copies of Volcanic Rocket. This card is literally the best card in the deck. It's 1900, which is already good, and it adds Blaze Accelerator card. You could add Tri-Blaze with this, we just don't play it. Then we play 3 copies of Volcanic Shell. Like I said, this card kind of like loops through your deck, allows you to get more pieces for your Blaze Accelerator. 1 copy of Volcanic Blaster. I just want more consistency. We were playing it for the longest time with just 8 monsters, but we needed another one, and I feel like this is the best one just because it allows us to stack either one of these or this in times of desperation if we need it. 2 copies of Blaze Accelerator because you don't need 3, but I wouldn't play 1 just because, you know, you want to see this. You don't want to rely solely on Rocket to see this card. Especially after the 1 is gone and in the graveyard, and if Cosmic Cyclone is in the game, you really don't want to play 1 just to have your whole combo get wrecked. 2 Wildfire. This card's really good. Originally I was only playing 1. I upped it to 3 at one point because you can loop the accelerators, but you don't want to dead draw this card. You do want to use accelerators sometimes to drop Doomfire, so we elected to just sit on 2 of this, but this is really strong. A lot of people don't see this coming, and it can honestly change the entire game in one fatal swoop. 2 Wabaku. We were trying on 3, but we don't really need that. The deck's good enough by itself. Plus, like I said, you want to keep your advantage as much as possible going into their turn. 2 Michizor. This is really good because of this, but also in general, just because things destroy things, you know, you can use it whenever you need it to. 2 Zoma the Spirit. I wish this card would go to 1 or get banned, just so we can move away from a format where this card doesn't exist. But it is what it is. I wanted some extra offense, so that's why we were on it. Plus, the burn damage is never bad. 1 Jar of Avarice, which I'll touch on in 1 sec, and 2 Dust Tornado. The deck has 0 spell and trap hate, so we're maining the 2 Dust Tornado as opposed to siding. We're actually siding a Night Beam. Yes, your cards can kind of bait out their back row, but like if you're going for a push and you want this to sit on the board and they out it real fast, it really sucks. So Dust Tornado definitely comes in clutch there. And the deck is kind of slow, so I feel like this is better than playing Cosmic. You're already paying life points when it comes to using Shell's effect every single time. Believe it or not, that adds up in 4,000 Yu-Gi-Oh! So Cosmic I just feel like isn't worth playing. It would be between this and Night Beam, and like I said, I'd main this and I sided the 1 beam. And Jar of Avarice. Now, for the people that are like, why are we not playing Royal Firestorm Guards? This card says if it's a normal summon, you target 4 Pyros in the grave, shuffle up 4 into the deck, and draw 2 cards. So on paper, this sounds really good. You're like, oh, well, you'll hit 4 Pyros easily between 3 shells and 1 of these. That is true. However, a lot of games, you'd either draw this early and it wouldn't do anything, and you'd have to hold it because you don't want to waste it. Or mid-game, you draw it and you just don't have 4 Pyros yet, or you would like to keep a shell in the graveyard to keep looping it, sending another 2 back, but you just don't have that 4th monster. Besides that, you don't want to loop all 3 of these. You can, but you don't really want to. It's only good late game. It's really good late game. But I want the deck to have more consistency. And yes, I understand Jar of Avarice is a little bit slower in the fact that like it doesn't do anything early game. The other thing is returning 5 cards versus 5 monsters lets you recycle Blaze Accelerator, Wildfire, Doomfire if you feel the need to recycle that early. Lets you recycle the shells kind of like you would with the Firestorm Guards. It's just more consistent, I've found, than playing the Firestorm Guards, but I do understand the argument for Firestorm. I also understand the argument of playing neither, but the problem is this deck can peter out early, and if you peter out early and have no recoveries, it kind of sucks. You need one of the 2, I think, unless you can find a way to like drop Doomfire every turn 1 and try to win off of it. Side deck, we were playing 1 Lava Golem because the burn damage is nice, but also we need removal. 1 Night Beam just because we need extra spawn trap hate. 2 Book of Moon because we don't really have space in the main deck, but this is an easy side out being the Mitchazur for the Book of Moon, depending on the matchup. 1 Defusion, this is generic, I just like this against a lot of fusion decks right now. And 1 Lost Wind, kind of the same argument for Defusion. It's good against a lot of the fusion decks, but it's also good against anything that special summons in general. And our extra deck is actually dead. It's blind, exactly what I would probably play if I had Waking the Dragon in here. 1 Cyber End, 1 Arcana Knight, 1 Destiny End, 1 Ojama King, 1 Cyberblader, and 1 Thousand Eyes. But we don't play the Waking the Dragon. We could, in theory. The thing is, we do set enough cards where things would be relevant. But again, the side deck you can mess around with. It's nothing super set in stone. The entire format is super wide open right now. So, on to the other deck. For the Destiny Hero Tribute Summon deck, I guess we'll call it, we were playing 30 cards. And while I don't think 30 is ideal, we needed Mally to not be dead. And what I mean by that is every time we played 22 to 24 cards, we drew this too often, too early, and it was dead. The point is you want to foolish it, or if you have 1, you can summon a Cyber Dragon, tribute it, summon the Mally, but that's a desperation move already, unless you have creature swap. So thinking about it going forward, we might actually just cut the Mally package. That would put this deck down to 25, and then you can actually mess around with numbers from there. Also, our tributes are all generic because, again, open format, we don't know everything yet. So we played 1 Hades to negate monster effects. We played 1 Grimarg because it still pops a set card. We played 1 Kaiser because it can bounce fusions back to the extra deck, which is pretty good, or rituals back to the hand. That depends where you're at. 1 Jinzo because we don't play a single trap card. 2 Cyber Dragon. I elected 2 over 3 just because, and you saw it in the game there, you can draw multiple and or have normal summons sit on your field long enough to where this card just doesn't do enough. It's funny to say that because originally I had said this was a 3 of in almost everything, but going forward, I actually don't think you're going to play this in a whole lot of decks, and if you do play it, unless it's a Cyber Dragon based deck, you're only probably playing 2 max, but the card is still really good. 3 Diamond Dude, again, this could be a bit much. We were trying to max out with 30 to spread out the Mallies, but like if I cut this package, I'll probably cut this down to 2. 1 Exiled Force because it's a rotatable card that still pops a monster. 3 Break of the Magic Warrior because it's still probably the best normal summon in the game. 3 Mally. Mally, for the people that don't know, since it never went off, says you can banish it from your grave to special summon a Disney Hero Malicious from your deck. The point is, once it's in the graveyard, you can banish it twice, because there's 3 in here, to give yourself free tribute fodder, but you also get free creature swap fodder, which is kind of cool as well. 2 Sphere Karibo, just for this deck needs some type of defense. This is the best thing we could play. We can't really play traps. We didn't want to play traps. We don't want to mill traps, and we don't want to have traps because of Jinzo. On that note, though, we could side a second Jinzo or main it. 3 copies of Reinforcements of the Army because it searches our 3 Diamond Dude in our Exiled and our side decked Don Zalug. 2 Tribute to the Doomed because, like I said, you can mill this off Diamond Dude and then you don't even pay the cost. But if you do have it in hand, discarding isn't the worst thing either. 2 Creature Swap because everything in this deck is pretty weak, if not for the Tribute monsters. So you easily will take your opponent's stuff. 1 Hammer Shot depending on where you see it. 1 Soul Exchange because of the tributes that you have, and you can make Cyber Dragon live like that as well by just getting rid of something. And then 1 Night Beam in the main deck. Between Breaker and Jinzo, I didn't feel like this was super relevant, but 1 of isn't even bad. Like I said, side deck is the 1 Don Zalug. 2 Eradicating Aerosol because they were siding Hidden Parasite. 1 Nomina Crossout, again, format's wide open. This card's really strong, especially if you hit it off Diamond Dude. And 1 Defusion, because I think this is the way to go. The reason we're only siding 5 instead of 6 is because your 6 card would be Hidden Parasite, the skill, but you can't bring up skills on speed duels unless you go through the custom card option. If you're playing the regular thing, you bring it up as soon as you start playing, so this would be the spot for that. But guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. We were messing around with a lot of different trial options. I actually had Volcanics go toe-to-toe with XYZ for a while, but XYZ still has more consistency than Volcanic does. But when they have fusions on board and you just get to free pop them, it's pretty good. So we'll mess around with Volcanics a little bit more. I think the deck is definitely more of a contender than I originally expected it to be, and that's pretty shocking. I do absolutely love this deck. I think this deck never got enough love outside of like the Primal Origin days, but like the OG Volcanic days never had enough love. But let me know in the comments what you think, what I should try out next, what you would like to see me mess with, any ideas you may have. Comment, like, and subscribe as always. Click the notification bell. And Kaiba, would you like to end our video off?
For more amazing speed duel content, Subscribe to Yugi Bros. Attack with White Lightning!